Hello everyone and welcome back to PSGL F3 as we head into round 11 of the season here at the iconic Brazilian Grand Prix, and we are at Interlagos, one of the most famous circuits on the calendar, shortened led but action packed all the way through. The constant elevation changes, the fast and following middle sector, and that long run down towards turn 1, which means a track with rhythm and confidence are absolutely everything. One small mistake here could cost you multiple positions, but get it right and can build momentum lap after lap. As we approach the business at the end of the season, Brazil feels like the kind of circuit that can really separate the drivers who are calm under pressure for the ones who crack. My name is Jamie Morris, and alongside me tonight is Milan Langer. How are you doing, mate?
I'm doing very well indeed. So I'm really looking forward to this race, because it's not only Brazil, which is always an incredible track for racing on this game as well, but with the championship so incredibly close, the top three separated by just 1 point, all three of them. I'm going to be sure that this is going to be an incredible race. Of course, last season we had this at the season finale. That was an incredible race as well. So yeah, this really could be a decider in the championship. But we kick off with qualifying as per usual, and I think Ryan in the McLaren is the first one to start his flying lap. There's a couple of cars ahead of him who I hope they get out of the way in time. That's the kick Sauber there up ahead, going wide, and as a result, well, you wouldn't really say as a result, but Ryan goes off wide himself and is not able to complete this lap time within track limit. That was one of the others coming through there as well. Mighty Wombat in the Haas. He instead then will try to set a valid lap time, but it's really busy here out in track. Look at all these cars left and right off the track, trying to let the Haas driver through. As yeah, it's really busy out on track, very early indeed here in qualifying. But now it looks like he has clean track ahead of him, apart from his teammate, but he shouldn't be in the way of the Haas driver as he comes around the final couple of corners to end off the lap, the final braking zone before that very long full throttle straight all the way towards the start-finish line. And let's see what this lap time is going to be for Mighty Wombat. Will be the first one to complete that lap time, or actually his teammate starts another lap right now. And Mighty Wombat will set a 107.851 to kick off the qualifying session for the penultimate round of the season, but immediately get beaten there by Jungi Angle with a 107.62 tenths ahead, and Napple in the Williams splits the two of them.
Indeed, it is Junki Angle on high form after his podium back at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Napoli in P2, who desperately needs to find some form after his bad couple of races. But we're looking at the championship now, which is very crucial because the top three are separated by 1 point. As Silu goes quickest in a Ferrari with a 7.4. I really haven't seen him much this season. This is his first race a couple of races ago, but back towards the championship. Now looking at the bigger picture, the championship has taken another big twist after a dramatic race last time out in Saudi Arabia. It was a night that didn't go out planned for Milan Diossi after crashing out and retiring from the race, losing valuable ground and critical stage of the season as well. That opened the door for the one, Melvin Everman, who finally converted his pace into a victory after a run of bad luck, penalties, lost points and missed opportunities early in the year. That win has pulled Melvin right back into the title fight, and suddenly the championship feels wide open once again. Despite some unfortunate safety car timing last round, D'Amico now finds himself leading the championship, but the gap is far from comfortable. With only a handful of rounds remaining, every single point matters, every mistake is magnified, and Brazil could play a huge role deciding how this title fight unfolds heading towards the final races of this season. So bearing in mind, the top three separated by 1 point. D'Amico leading 90, Melvin 89 and Milan 89 too. This is such an intense championship fight here this season. With 2 rounds left to go, everything to play for. Mistakes have to be kept to an absolute minimum. Neither of the 3 drivers mentioned can make a single mistake in these last 2 races, because that could blow open the championship for any of them and put others at advantage as well, such as Milan, who had a big lead in the championship before Saudi Arabia, but unfortunately crashed, which had a big chance for others to catch up as well. Look at the gap between third down to fifth as well, separated by just a few hundreds. Kingsman goes up into P3, but the top three, 2 out of the 3 championship contenders are inside first and second place. Where's Melvin? Melvin is currently down in P12, going through turn 6 and turn 7. Ferrodora up towards the hill now, where Hulkenberg spun back in 2012 and cost him the win, I dare say. Mighty Wombat goes up into P3 and the Haas as well, so a great effort for him. But there's only 1 drivers in the 6s so far, which is D'Amico with a 6.9 with Milan Diossi in P2. But where is Melvin going to fit in this equation? KDRDN And Paco in P8 have set the exact same time with a 7.515. Very close margins indeed. Alan goes into P7 in the Aston Martin. Melvin now opens the DRS, foot to the floor, use the battery he has left, and let's see where the McLaren driver can fit in this equation. P2 with a 6.995, and it's getting so intense with the top three in the championship, or the top three in the standings right now in qualifying.
Very, very tight indeed between the top three, as just Peyton goes to P12. Very unhappy with that lap. It seems like weaving aggressively as he crossed the line with a 107.62 thousandth of a second behind his teammate Provotox in the Ferrari, invalidating twice in a row now. And the second time he did through turn 1, so not having a great time. The pole sitter of Spain earlier this season down in P15. Only himself and Bassi are the two remaining drivers who haven't set a lap time yet. The Haas driver just going through the center S's now to attempt to do that. His teammate, Mighty Wombat, now in P4, quite in a handy position and quite high up. That would have expected from him, but doing a good job so far as Bassi goes through Sector 1 very clean and keeping it between those white lines. Very important around this track, of course, around every track, but it can be quite difficult sometimes here around Brazil, especially in the race, as well as he now makes his way through this very tight and twisty second sector with a lot of, well, I wouldn't say hairpins, but close to that, hard braking zones, and you have to be mindful of the grass on the outside as he now goes through turn 10, and it's going to be accelerating outwards full throttle through turn 11, and then to this final braking zone of turn 12, looking like a decent lap time so far from Bassi. Bit of a slide coming out there of turn 12, but I don't think he lost too much time with that, and using the last remaining battery that he has left in the storage all the way towards the finish line. This lap time is going to be a 107.096, and that is actually a very good lap time because it's right behind Jan Diossi by only a few hundredths of a second, and with his teammate right in P5. Haas looking very strong so far here in qualifying, but of course there's still 10 minutes remaining in the session, and a lot of things can change as Ryan in the McLaren goes P6 on his second attempt with a 7.4. A lot of drivers in the 7.4s, 4 to be precise, all the way down towards the Grandada in P9, who picked up a podium last week at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix after KDRDN unfortunately got himself a penalty for an incident. As Napple now goes P5, he really needs a good result. He's been so unlucky, involved in so many incidents so far this season, only 1 point to his name. And I would really like to get a few more towards the very end of the season. But he goes P5 with a good lap time of 7.2, splitting the two Haas drivers. And down in P16, Provotox still needing to set a lap time. But a lot of these drivers are now going for their second runs. Junkie Angle in the Mercedes all the way on the runoff there on the right hand side towards the braking zone of turn 1, maximizing the entire track width to get the best lap time possible. He needs to, because he's down in P14 with his teammate in P15, not really where you see the Mercedes quite often, as he finds only 200ths of a second through sector 1. We'll need to find a little bit more through the rest of the lap, but I reckon the middle sector is where the most time is to be gained for the Mercedes driver. We'll keep an eye out on the rest of the drivers as well, who are on their second run. Very tight to the inside, but running out slightly wide on exit, which compromises his run in towards turn 9. And might have cost him a little bit of time there once again. Now through turn 10 on the exit uphill, a little bit wide there onto the runoff, but don't touch the grass, I think. And now he finds only a tenth of a second, but that tenth of a second could bring all the way up to P11. If he finds a little bit more in this final sector, he could be putting himself right up there with Ryan in P7, but he needs a good run out of that final braking zone. Let's see where this lap time is going to put him. P6 it is, with a great final sector, 2,000ths of a second ahead of Mighty Wombat. And the Mercedes driver finds himself back inside the top 6, where I think he's finished. Well, not really finished the entire season, but he's been very consistent so far this season. Every single race finishing inside the top 7, and would like to replicate that. But Demaiko and Melvin also starting another lap. Milan DLC is on his out lap, so let's see where the championship protagonists are going to stand after the second run. It's a good first sector from Demaiko, 8/100ths of a second up through the first part of the lap, but I figured he didn't really hook up the apex of the next one, as Melvin there unfortunately running out just ever so slightly too wide, and he will not improve as he invalidates his second run. So we'll keep an eye out on Demaiko then. How much quicker can he go on this second run? How much can he put between himself and his rivals? That is a very, very poor exit coming out of turn 10, and that is not really what you'd like to see on his second run. He backs off immediately 9 tenths down. So neither the Michael or Melvin able to improve. But let's see what Milan Diossi can do in the V Cup.
2 of our 3 championship contenders struggling there as we see Milan Diossi on his flying lap. We just saw C8 Lou go over to P5 Kingsman in P6 there, displaying some good pace. But Milan Diossi is right behind somebody there. Is that an Aston Martin in his way? Massive slide there from Milan Diossi out of turn 4. So all 3 of our championship contenders have suffered a massive loss there, unfortunately, and mistakes as well in the process. The Granddada, who goes up into P4 in the Alpine, just barely gets anything separating the guys at the front of the field. It's just ever so compact and so close here. Anything could happen and change in the last few minutes, but you can definitely tell the pressure is ramping up. But for Milan Diossi in P3, how is that crash in Saudi Arabia going to affect his performance here in Brazil today? Because it was such a clumsy, small crash, which had big consequences, and it put him towards second place in the championship as well after leading it for such a long time. Povatov's in the Ferrari, the pole sitter from Spain, goes up into P7 and inside the top 10 just behind his teammate C8 Lou there, so both Ferraris relatively close. But Passi in the Haas has done an exceptional job in P5, and it's his second race here too in PSGL F3, and he now heads his way down towards Magulio we go. No, this is Magulio, so that's Pico de Pato. No, it's not. I'm getting confused here between the track names. That downhill section is Magulio. The other one was, I got it right, Pico de Pato and Magulio. So apologies there, just thinking ahead. But now Passi now making his way towards up the hill, towards line DRS wide open. Melvin goes quicker with a 6.772. And here comes Passi. Passi goes up into P2. What an incredible lap time there from the Haas driver. And he pulled out of the bag after finishing in 13th place back at Saudi Arabia and has stepped up his performance massively. Milan Diossi is on a lap time, but I'm not sure if he's improving or not as we now head down towards the right-handed we go, where we saw Alex Albon and Lewis Hamilton had their crash back in 2019. He has a clean exit. There was a Williams in front of us, and he's 1.4 seconds down. So it doesn't really matter, but it does get hindered. So if Milan wasn't a lap time, that Williams would have impeded him. But luckily Milan wasn't. So that Williams there needs to pay a bit more attention. That was Napoli there, who's now headed towards the pit lane. There's a flurry of cars absolutely everywhere around this short track as every single driver then headed back into the pit lane. What's Ryan doing? Ryan is a 10th up in the first sector as he now heads towards turn 6 and turn 7 in 6th gear up the hill as we make our way down in towards 8 we go. These slow speed corners there can catch a lot of people out. It's very important to be patient on the throttle. As we exit now, headed down in towards turn 10 we go, taking a very wide line there, get the car scooped in, get back to the throttle there, no signs of wheel spin, and plenty of people have suffered with wheel spin there in the past as well. It's such a difficult corner. Ryan goes 5 tenths quicker in the middle sector on his personal best lap before, but he does make a little bit of a mistake in towards John Sal. It was just a bit of a miscorrection there too as we now make our way towards the line. Where can he go in the McLaren? He goes 6.9 and is P4, so he is there with his teammate. What's very important too, that Milan Diossi, D'Amico and Melvin, they all need their teammates there too to be a big part of the championship fight. And realistically, this season we haven't really seen any of their teammates so close together in the last few races, including I think the Silverstone Grand Prix when I think Milan Diossi had his teammate Levi up there as well, but I think Milan had a few issues. I think Levi had a few issues in that race, which enabled Milan to go back ahead. KDRDN, interestingly, he finished P3, I think, at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, but post-race penalty says he dropped backwards into P7 or P8. So what a massive shame, because KDRDN has finished in the points quite a lot this season, and he's been a regular points scorer ever since the third round of the season. But unfortunately, picked up that penalty at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix when he was on the podium. So that was a massive dent, unfortunately, for him, and a massive shame because he's very quick. Both Kick Sabers have been very quick this season, but suffered due to misfortunes. And let's see if KDRDN can finally get a podium in Brazil or in Abu Dhabi in the last race of the season. There is 2 races left to go, but we're focused and fixated on qualifying. Every single driver in the pit lane, Boyd, Alamiku, and just Baton and Alamiku down there in 50 to 60 place. Got out quite early, on board with the Mercedes driver now, as he plummets down the hill in towards turn 1, breaking the 50-meter board, slow the car down into third gear in the center resters. Now we go in towards turn 2, taking a lot of curve on the inside, and there too, in towards turn 3. You're basically hugging turn 3, trying to take the shortest distance as well as much you can get away with it as we head down in towards turn 4 we go. Braking the moment. There is not really a reference point going down there in towards turn 4, but look how much curb he used on the outside there, trying to utilise every single part of this racetrack as we now head towards turn 6 and 7 we go there. Went a bit wide up the hill, but nothing too dramatic as we head down towards these slow speed corners. Very important as well to slow the car down. We saw Sonoda hit the back of Stroll, and this is where Stroll put Gabriel Bortoleto in the wall, unfortunately, for his first home Grand Prix for the Kickstarter driver. But as just baiting our heads down towards Maguglia we go, let's see what his middle sector is like in comparison towards his best lap time. 0.3 of a second. That should put him up towards P9 and P10 area. Depends if he can find more time in this last sector. But with time closing down here in qualifying, every single driver will be making an appearance on the track very shortly. Here comes Mercedes. He goes up into P12 and behind Napoli for the time being. But every single driver is making their way out on the circuit. And unfortunately for Alimiku in P16, he has made a mistake and has to go for it once again.
This is about to get very interesting at the very end of this qualifying session. Everyone going for their final runs. And we'll keep an eye out on our championship contenders, as it looks like Kinsman has already backed off on his lap. What about his teammate? He as well. Some of these drivers may be going for 2 outlaps, it seems like. So Junkie Angle in the Mercedes, the second Mercedes. Mercedes not really going well around this track, it seems like. Down on P12 and P13, and Junkie Angle doesn't even find some time through Sector 1. He backs off as well, as Alameko unfortunately has invalidated through Turn 1, so neither him will improve on his lap time. So let's take a look then at D'Amico in the Alpine in P3. Unable to improve on his second run, but let's see what he can do now. He needs to find 1.5 tenths at least to be able to get ahead of Melvin in P1. He finds 8/100ths of a second already through the first sector, and that's much better hooked up there through turn 4 than his second attempt. Now heading up towards turns 6 and 7, very, very quick. A right-hander up the hill and now down into the braking zone of turn 8, hooking the inside very tightly indeed. Will he exit through towards turn 9, trying to get the power down as early as possible. And now to the braking zone of turn 10. Complete to the outside, back to the inside, and to the outside again on the exit. Let's see, hooking the inside once more. And has he found any more time in the middle sector? Yes, he has. Almost up by 1.5 tenths. It could be very close between himself and Melvin. That's a Haas up ahead. Hopefully, he might get a little bit of slipstream of them. But we don't think he's close enough to be able to get that. And the truth is that those Haas times, that Haas driver will not be able to set a lap time. Here comes D'Amico towards the finish line. And he's not going to go fastest. He goes second place. He misses out by 0.06 of a second towards Melvin. Melvin himself is up by almost 0.2 of a second through the middle sector. This might be a mighty lap time from the McLaren driver as he comes towards the finish line. Let's see what he can do. A 1:06.594, and it's a brilliant lap time. What about Milan Diossi in the RB? Has he found some time on this lap time? Can he go anywhere near his rivals? No, he's going back into the pit lane. Milan Diossi is back into the pit lane. He will start P5 at best, but there's a lot of drivers behind him who can still try and improve. Ryan will not improve as he slides across the finish line. Then it's 2 Ferraris of Profitox, who unfortunately has invalidated. There comes Napoli in the Williams. He goes P7. And Jungi Angle down in P15. Kingsman in the Williams will go back into the pit lane. Mighty Wombat in the Haas. Let's see what he can do. He hasn't been improving so far. He comes into the pit lane as well. And then we wait for C8 Lou, the final driver to cross the line. And he goes into the pit lane as well. So many drivers unable to improve in their final runs, which is great for Milan Diossi, who stays in P5. But it's Melvin in the McLaren with a brilliant lap time. He will start this race from pole position. That's already 1 point in the bag. And he's almost 2 tenths ahead of his championship rival D'Amico.
So that means Melvin is tied with D'Amico on points now, literally. So this is very good news there for Melvin. He's tied with D'Amico, who's the championship leader, first and second place, which means that Milan is still 1 point behind both of them and a few places behind both of them too, which is not going good for the Hungarian driver in P5. Melvin is on pole position ahead of D'Amico P2, the German. Passy, however, great qualifier for him. His second appearance here in PSGL F3 this season, rides up to P4. So that's good news for Melvin. He could be the rear gunner towards him and defend for Milan Diossi if needs be. The Granddaddy in P6, the Wizard doing a good job once again. Napoli, however, great job for him in P7, has struggled all this season. See it, Lou, in the 4IP ahead of Mighty Wombat. Puffertox is P10 ahead of Kingsman. KDRDN, which is disappointing for his standards, just beaten in P13 ahead of Pacos. Junkie Angle and Alimiku in P16. Junkie Angle, what a shame, because he had a great time in Saudi Arabia, finishing in P2, but unfortunately he starts on the P15. He has scored points almost every race this season, has Junker Angle. In fact, he has scored points every single race this season. He had a P3 back in Belgium, a P2 back in Saudi, but this time starts P15 here in Brazil. So unfortunately for him, this track does not suit him, but it has to be a good race for all three of our championship contenders because the championship is listed on the line. No mistakes can be afforded to make now. We're coming towards the end of the season. The climax is reachable for sure. And what a place to do it. I'd rather have the Brazilian Grand Prix to be the last race of the season rather than Abu Dhabi, but I think Abu Dhabi is all right too, to be fair, because in league racing, Abu Dhabi can be quite good with the two DRS zones on the first and second back straight. It doesn't have one on the main straight, interestingly, but it's a very short straight, so I think it's not really necessary to have one down there. But in Brazil, there is two DRS zones going from out just south towards turn 1, then out of turn 3 all the way down towards turn 4. We see some great action here in the past as well. Brazil always puts on some spicy races as well every single time we come towards Interlagos, even in real life F1 as well. It's always produced some spectacular racing, and hopefully we do see the same thing. Championships are normally decided here in Brazil, but I don't think any championship can be in terms of a championship being decided tonight, either one of the three drivers, both of them have to DRS and one of them has to win the race, vice versa. That's how the championship is going to win. But the championship, realistically and pragmatically, would definitely go down to the wire in Abu Dhabi. So I don't think anybody's thinking about a championship on the line tonight. But unless, let's say, if 2 out of the 3 drivers have a really bad race, they both DNF, and the other one goes on to win, possibly to win the championship, unless it's Milan Diossi, he needs to score an extra point in Abu Dhabi to get pole, then yeah, it's complicated, but it all makes sense in Abu Dhabi. But so far, so good for Melvin in P1. He takes another point, like he did back in Saudi Arabia for pole position. That's 2 in a row now for Melvin. He has some good pace. I think he took pole back in Mexico, but didn't quite convert it to a win due to his post-race penalty with Milan Diossi, and it put him down into P2. Luckily, D'Amico was so far behind that Melvin's penalty only put him down 1 place and put him into P2, which is not too bad for his championship. But he had 3 poles in a row: Saudi, Mexico, and here in Brazil as well. So it's looking good so far for the McLaren driver in terms of pace, especially what he needs, because he had 1 bad race in Spain, and it almost cost him to DNF too, because it got wiped out down at turn number 3 or 2 or 3 in Spain, and it dropped him so many places as well. It cost him dearly. He never made a recovery because there was no safety car, plus his whole front wing was gone, so Melvin's chance of recovery was quite slim in that race as well. But he certainly made a comeback, and what a place to do it as well, back in Saudi Arabia, to make a comeback and be equal on points with D'Amico as well. Milan, I'm looking forward to this race, mate. Anything could happen. We're going to see some loads of DRS swapping back and forth as well every single time and every single lap as well. So I cannot wait to see what happens here in Interlagos.
Yeah, this is going to be a very, very good race, as always it is around Brazil. So let's see what is going to happen between our 3 championship rivals. Melvin on pole position, the bike alongside him. Milan Diossi down on P5, knowing he needs to get up the order as soon as possible in the beginning stages of the race and get right near his rivals. And then they're going to fight it out, all 3 of them, towards the very end, when it's no longer about management. It's just about who's going to get ahead and who's going to get this victory, this crucial victory here at Brazil, as it could set it up very nicely indeed for the season finale at Abu Dhabi next week. So yeah, could it be Melvin? Could it be D'Amico? Would it be Milan Diossi from P5? Or would it be someone else? Who knows? Something could always happen between these 2. It's something around this track as well is the pit lane speed limit can be quite tricky as well, like at Silverstone, where we saw Melvin and Milan Diossi pick up a 10-second time penalty. Something like that could happen around Brazil as well. So it's always something to keep in the back of your mind, but it is going to be a great race for sure. For the strategy wise, tire wear is quite high around here, but a 1 stop is definitely doable. Here we go then for round 10 of the season here at Brazil.
The lights on the gantry, and they fade away. And look at that, D'Amico's dropping down the order. Oh no, what's happened to him? He has fallen all the way down into last place. What a horrible start there for D'Amico. The Alpine did not get going whatsoever, but it is the McLaren driver of Melvin who leads this race. What's happened to D'Amico down in P15? Is it a Mexico situation where somebody thinks that they started the wrong time. Not quite sure what it is, but Melvin now leads this race ahead of the Haas driver. Where is Milan? He's down in P3, which is good for him. He's got past the McLaren of Ryan, which is very important for his championship to get at least ahead of that McLaren driver, so we can focus on Melvin. But Melvin looks like he's pulling away already in this race. But D'Amico, what a shame for him in P15. He's fallen. Oh, there's contact as well between the Mercedes and the Williams as well for good measure, and it's going horribly wrong for our championship contender of D'Amico, unfortunately. So what on earth happened there?
I have no idea. It seemed like he was sleeping off the line. Just did not get off that start-finish line. He finds himself all the way down in P14. This is not what he needed, as he tries to send it up the inside of Alamico. Obviously frustrated with that start. Started in P2, was right in contention with Melvin to fight it out for the race, but now has to go for a comeback drive, and the win will start to fade away from him. The Ferrari swap around for P5 and P6 as we go on to the second lap, with Melvin in the lead. Already got a 9/10 gap now towards Bassi, and Milan Diossi will need to get past as soon as possible, as just Peyton unfortunately retires from this race after that incident earlier on the opening lap, and becomes our first retirement immediately. But Milan Diossi needs to get past the Haas driver as soon as possible, so then he can try and chase after the Haas driver and get closer towards Melvin. He cannot afford to get Melvin to drive away in these early stints, because it will be very difficult for him to close that gap once again, and it could be an easy victory from Melvin, as D'Amico in his fight back through the field has finally found a way past Alamico and is now up into P13, but he's in this massive train, which will be a DRS train where it's very, very difficult to overtake, and he needs to find other places to try and find a way past rather than the start-finish straight. But down in P13, outside of the points, is one of our championship protagonists, and well, that is the absolute last thing he needed in this championship fight.
It's very important for Milan Diossi to get past the Haas driver, because the Haas driver has no response towards Melvin. Melvin now has set that's up of the race, but goes towards Milan Diossi now. Can Milan Diossi get himself in DRS range? Goes a bit deeper towards turn one. They're optimistic to get that gap under a second. Has he done it? I'm not quite sure if he has or not. You can see he's very low on the fuel as well, so underfueled the car for good measure, so you might have to do a little bit of fuel saving towards the end. But Melvin and Milan now, first and second place in the championship standings, are now first and second in the race there. So let's see if Milan can fight Melvin and try and get that gap under a second. It's very important for his championship to do so, but I think he was a bit too deep in towards turn one. That's cost him dearly. But in these slow speed corners, in this slow part of the track, can he try and get himself under a second and get the gap under there to try and get himself within contention of the McLaren driver and fight him all the way through this race? D'Amico goes up into P12 now, hoping for a safety car, something at least. He goes side by side with the Red Bull driver, headed down in towards turn 10. Is so close there, but unfortunately D'Amico can't get through and has to stay behind for the time being then, and he's looking to try and come back to the field like he did in Saudi Arabia, but unfortunately it's just difficult to get past right here in Junsao. And as we see now heading out of Junsao, can he make a move on the Red Bull driver as we head down the main straight with the DRS wide open? All these guys in 1B DRS train. Milan is getting closer towards Melvin, but unfortunately on this occasion I don't think he can get himself a DRS range, and we'll pass the overtake as we head down towards the first few corners we go on the racetrack. Paco is right behind the Mercedes driver of Junkie Angle on the hardcore powered tyres. Same with Kingsman as well, down in P10. So they're on the hardcore powered tyres, looking to go for the long stint, and that's bad news for D'Amico, because he don't want to get stuck behind people on the hardcore powered tyres, knowing that their tyres will potentially get better towards the mid part of the race, and therefore difficult to overtake him whilst he's on the medium powered tyres. But Milan Diossi, ever so desperate to get that gap under a second there, because if he does, that means he won't be under pressure from behind. He can use the DRS, he can save his tyres by being in the DRS range of Melvin as well, but he's pushing so hard. Both drivers on the absolute edge, trying to keep each other at bay, as D'Amico finally gets past the Red Bull driver, as we see him now go up into P12 and ahead of Paco. But, well, I think the German driver, I think there was a signal error for him. If it was a signal error, maybe he anticipated the time to go at a different time, not quite sure, because remember back in Qatar last season when somebody didn't get off the line and they complained that somebody readied up too early. That could be the same case as what's happened here in Brazil. And if that is the case, then it's a massive blunder in the championship. You've got to pay attention, you've got to have your wits about you all the time, because his race essentially ended before it's even started, literally, and it's cost him a whole bunch of places as well, and it's going to be so difficult to regain those lost places in P12 being stuck behind cars in the DRS train. So it's going to be a long race there for Demaiko. He does have the pace, but it's just difficult to overtake him out here, being stuck in that DRS train. And what can he do? What's his options now down in P12? It's limited, really. I don't think a safety car would help either because it just punch up the pack again and be stuck down there in P12. So there's nothing Demaiko can really do. Try and move forward as quick as he can, hoping he can leapfrog the guys ahead if he can as well. Try to make some aggressive moves. It's just damage limitation now for Demaiko in P12. And obviously we're not restarting the race, so there's no hope in that either. So Demaiko there has got to charge to the field, or hope and pray that something happens between the top two on Milan Diossi and Melvin Everman as well. If you remember back in Saudi Arabia too, Demaiko got caught out by the safety car because the safety car came at the wrong time for him. And it forced him to be stuck behind a whole bunch of cars, and he never recovered since then. As we see, Passi in P3 still puts the pressure on Milan Diossi, but he made a mistake out of turn 1, and now has the McLaren and Ryan right behind him too for good measure, with the DRS wide open. But Ryan is unable to get past Passi and go up into P3. But the crucial thing for Milan is, at least he's not stuck behind Ryan in P4, because if he was, that'd be a massive headache for the whole race. Remember Ryan's defence back in the Silverstone Grand Prix? What's happened there?
A big accident going in towards turn 4 was 3 wide between Grandada, Junkie Angle and Demaiko. All three of them side by side in towards the corner. And it was the Mercedes driver Junkie Angle coming off worse, spinning around, and I think he got connected by Paco in the Red Bull because he has suffered front wing damage. It was really a little bit of an optimistic move there from Demaiko, trying to take 2 at once, and 3 into 1 really doesn't go, especially not around that corner. And now he did gain a position, but Junkie Angle spun around down to P14, and Paco with front wing damage. So quite the unfortunate incident. But it shows that Demaiko is a little bit desperate to get the move on right now, because he needs to in this championship fight, as he's now up into P11. But a little bit of a sketchy move between himself, his teammate, and the Mercedes, as he will try to get past his teammate as soon as possible, because he's got a little bit of a gap towards Kingsman, who is on the hards, as unfortunately Paco now into the pit lane because he got that front wing damage. But there's quite a big gap between KDRDN and Kingsman as well, which Demaiko will have to bridge once he gets past his teammates. Shouldn't be too much of a fight between these. Someone's going off. Oh, in the back, but that is Junkie Angle crashing out in towards the wall with Napol, and the safety car has been deployed. That is bad news for Melvin, great news for Milan Diossi, and excellent news for Demaiko.
So what happened there, because I was on board with Demaiko, he was trying to get past his teammate, which he did. That's very important too, because let's say if Demaiko did not get past his teammate at that point, the safety car would have come out and potentially get stuck in the pit lane, having to do a double stack. But explain to me what happened there, Milan.
I didn't see the full incident, but I think it was Napol and Junkie Angle. They came together on the exit, I believe. Might have went side by side towards turn 1, but I just saw the very end of it, of Junkie Angle slamming into the wall and losing his wheel, and Napol spinning around through turn 3. So I can't really give an exact description of what happened there, but it seems like another unfortunate incident. And once again, Napol being involved. That's the second incident in this race that has been involved. So many incidents he's had this season so far, and this is just another one. And the 2 Mercedes drivers are out by lap 7, and it's no surprise seeing every single driver put into pit lane. Passi picks up a 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. You really cannot afford that. Mighty Wombat as well. Both Haas drivers, both now with a 10-second time penalty. You cannot afford that, to do that in racing conditions, but to do that under safety car conditions is going to be extra painful for both of the Haas drivers, as everyone making their scheduled pit stop. I don't think anyone is staying out, not even Kingsman, who started on the hards, but this, I think, forces everyone to go for a 2-stop, or it will be a very long stint on the hards. But they all come out as they went in, with Melvin in the lead but towards Milan Diossi. But that gap between those two has to come down to what will be a few tenths of a second once they get this restart going again. But that is really, really unfortunate there for both of the Haas drivers.
Indeed it is. I'm going to go to the toilet, so I'll be right back. Gives me a perfect chance to go.
Sure thing, mate. So we're on lap 8 of 36, 28 laps to go after this one. Kingsman, who started on the hards, having to make a decision. He went for the pit stop and he's gone to the medium, so that confirms that he is definitely going to go for a 2-stop. But I think everyone else is going to have to as well, because tire wear is so high around this track, or you will have to do some great tire management to be able to make the one-stop work, but it's really a bit of a stretch to do that. But we'll see if anyone will try to go for that. The Maiko now finds himself inside the top 10. It was really crucial, like Jimmy just said, to get ahead of his teammate, because he would have the pit stop priority coming into the pit lane, and the Granddad now as a result has dropped down to P13, but only loses really 2 spots because of that. But the Maiko now in P10 behind Kingsman, who's on the medium, so he will be quick off the safety car restart. But the Maiko now, crucially for him, has closed up back towards the field. Also great news for the drivers who underfueled their car, because they will not have to worry about that anymore once the safety car will come into the pit lane. And that is Mighty Wombat coming in immediately to serve his 10-second time penalty. That's quite a clever decision. He was inside the top 10. He will drop down towards P14, but at least he will not have that 10-second penalty to serve at a later pit stop under green flag conditions. Napple into the pit lane as well in the Williams for some reason. I'm not sure if he forgot to change his front wing. He might have, due to that incident with Junkie Angle. So Mighty Wombat having to stay still there for a very long time. 10 seconds, and yeah, there is a front wing change for the Williams of Napple. He's going to the softs, which is quite an interesting strategy, because he will really want to push once the safety car comes in. So we'll see the Williams driver trying to move up the order. Once we go back to green flag racing, and Mighty Wombat going for another new set of hearts, of course. The one he just used will be available later on as well, if he needs to, because he only has 1 outlap on them. But both of them then down in P13 and P14, making double pit stop under these safety car conditions. Bumping up another position there for the Maiko, now up to P9. And the race started to come towards him once more, which is really what he needs. We still never know what happened really at the start of the race. Maybe we will find out after the race once he says it in chat. But it was really quite an unfortunate moment for the man leading the championship. Although now tied on points with Melbourne, I think he might have. Or actually, do they have both 2 wins actually? So it would be quite close between them. But I think we will have 1 more lap under these safety car conditions, and then we will get back to green flag racing. It should be Melbourne leading the way ahead of Milan DLC. But now there is not really a gap of 1.3 seconds separating the two of them. And Milan DLC can try to attack, or at least stay with the McLaren driver to fight it out with him towards the end of the race.
It should be a little bit easier now for Milan DLC. He's trying to stay within the DRS range of Melbourne now, because they got the gap under a second, and try and stay within his DRS. Once the safety car has been brought back in to resume racing, can Milan stay within that DRS range and puts the pressure on Melbourne in front of him, because Melbourne and D'Amico are tied on points. Well, not in this instance if the race ends like this, but Milan Diossi knows that he needs to get ahead of Melvin, and let's see if he can or not. Milan Diossi, of course, who crashed at the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix at the exit of turn 4 because he just clipped the inside wall with his left front tyre, and it changed everything. It changed the whole trajectory and story in this insanely incredible championship fight we've got going on right now. But D'Amico once again suffering in this race. That's 2 races in a row he has suffered. Back in Mexico, he didn't have the pace to contend with Melvin and Milan because those two were just miles ahead. They were in a different postcode, those two were in Mexico. They were already in Brazil. But Melvin and Milan are doing such a good job. They've been neck and neck for the whole season, tooth and nail. Yes, both of them have made their own mistakes this season, but minimum. But Milan made a big one back in Saudi Arabia. But Melvin, it wasn't really his fault back in Spain because he got caught out. Although he did have a bad qualifying, which meant that he got put in that situation and got involved in the midfield mayhem. And that's why he's behind. Well, that's why he lost the points as well in the championship. But the safety car is coming in towards the end of this lap. Nappa hasn't caught up. He's gone back on the hard compound tyres. Obviously, don't want to go on the soft compound tyres either. But Milan needs some cat-like reactions if he wants to stay with Melvin, because he can't afford to let Melvin go now, because this has been a second chance in this race for Milan Diossi to overtake. But look at that, what a launch there for Melvin. He gets away cleanly and ahead of Milan Diossi as we head down towards turn 1. Are we going to see any moves as we now make our way down towards the S section? Down the inside goes the McLaren of Ryan. That's a great move indeed. The side-by-side in towards turn 1 and turn 2. Ryan has the outside line and takes away P4 from the Ferrari driver, who's under massive pressure from KDRDN. KDRDN came out of nowhere. He started outside the top 10, I think, did this kick Sauber driver. He's currently running in P6. He did. Started at the P12. Look at that. Massive Costino effect. And the Ferrari now under massive pressure as here comes D'Amico. He takes on Kingsman the Williams. He's trying to take on the Ferrari driver as we now head through Ferrador we go. not able to get alongside the Ferrari driver. It's such a difficult corner indeed, especially with heavy fuel, hard compound tyres. He doesn't specifically have the grip to go around the outside there in towards turn 6 and turn 7, but maybe looking for a move down the inside towards turn 10. The door's open, but gets shut firmly in the face, and therefore he can't make the move. But Milan Diossi, he's 1 second behind Melvin, and this is a big chance again for Melvin to pull away from Milan Diossi, because it seems like Melvin's got some incredible pace. He's not allowing anybody to be within DRS range, and you only get 1 lap to pull away. But Milan Diossi used the battery desperately to try and stay within the DRS range of Melvin as we head down towards turn 1 and turn 2. The detection point is right there at turn 2. Is Milan Diossi in DRS range? Let's have a look right now. I think he isn't. He's not in the DRS range of Melvin. So this is a big disappointment for Milan Diossi for the second time in this race, not to get in the DRS range of Melvin. He's been trying so hard in the first stint when the first safety car was deployed, but for the second stint, he's not able to get himself DRS range, and unfortunately for him, not able to battle Melvin. Melvin's got some incredible raw speed, incredible raw pace, and it's very important for him to have this pace as well, especially towards the second half of the season where it's all critical and it could reward him the championship in this season as well. And Milan Diossi as well, he's got about 24 laps to try and get himself under the DRS range of Melvin to fight for first place. However, Passi has been left behind and in the clutches of Ryan and Pavlov's as well. He has got a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, which could be detrimental for his race, because he had a great race until now with that penalty inside the top 3, but he just spent in the pit lane, and unfortunately has big consequences for the race. He's got Provotox right behind with 2 for good measure, and Ryan as we head down towards the main straight to conclude lap 12. On lap 13 we go. But Milan Diossi, though, has got himself back in DRS range. This time, does he have it on this back straight? We're about to find out right now. He does. So Milan Diossi does have the DRS range. But the question is now, can he stay there and fight Melvin?
It's not going to be easy, though, given the pace that Melvin has shown so far in this race. Mimon Maiko has found a way past the Ferrari of C8 Loot, put him up to P7, and now right behind KDR, slowly but surely making his way up the field. But the only downside to that is that Passi in P3 has lost the connection towards the top 2. The gap's now 2 seconds. That's mainly due to the fact that Ryan tried to go for that move in towards turn 1 at the safety car restart and trying to get past Provotox, which he did, but he almost hit the side there of Passi as well, who had to take a little bit of a wider line out of turn 1, compromising his run through turn 2, and unfortunately fell out of the DRS range once Milan Diossi started to push towards the McLaren of Melvin as we come out of the final corner once again, and Milan Diossi just inside DRS range, and this should put him very safely into the side of the McLaren driver, as he can use that DRS all the way to through their start finish straight, and the gap's down to 5 tenths onto lap 14 of 36 as Ryan is looking at the back of Passi, but goes a little bit deep in towards turn 1, and that's going to compromise his run once again as well. And Provotox right behind might try to find a way past. In the meantime, the Maiko now has closed the gap towards KDR down to 6 tenths of a second. Kingsman in the Williams really has not been able to make any moves despite being on the mediums. He should have the advantage of the safety car restart, but unfortunately it doesn't seem like he's able to get any moves done and stays there down in P9 where he was after the safety car restart. His teammate down in P14 having a terrible time as well. Down is Napol once again running outside the point, but the gap at the front is now 6 tenths of a second, and Passi is closing a little bit as well now, 1.4 seconds, and he's got quite a bit of ERS to work with as well now, with Milan and Melvin both have been saving up that battery to deploy down the start finish rate, and now Milan Diossi with the help of DRS should be able to pull away from the Haas driver once again, as the gap's now 8 tenths coming on to the start finish rate, and we come towards lap 15. The real question will be, can all these drivers make it to the end on this set of hard tires? Safety car stayed out quite long, so that should help with tire wear, but it's still very high around this track, and you'll have to do some tire management to be able to make that work, and we'll be surprised if we see some drivers having to go for a 2-stop, as 1.6 seconds now towards Passi. Ryan has fell behind a little bit and is unable to make any moves, and with Provotox still close behind in the Ferrari, then KDR, then the Maiko in P7, a little bit stuck now in this train, as it's getting way more difficult to find a way past, with Ciedo now down in P9. Kingsman having dropped outside of the DRS range after only 7 laps on the mediums. These are already starting to fall off underneath the Williams, and he will put under pressure from Alameko in P10, and from behind us the Maiko picks up a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings, and that is bad news once again for our championship leader, because that could put him really at a disadvantage towards the end of the race. If he doesn't get past all of these drivers, he will be put behind on this time penalty. So that really, once again, is not something he needed. He was doing so well on his comeback, but this might be putting him on the back foot again.
Yeah, what a shame for D'Amico. That start of the race has really cost him dearly indeed. I'm not quite sure what the explanation is. It could be multiple reasons, but my main suspicion is that these guys probably read it up too early, and for his liking, he probably thought he's going at a specific time, and these guys read it up, or one of them read it up early, then the race got going, and he got stuck by. It could be a real issue, I'm not quite sure, but the explanation will come towards the end of the race. I just went on board with Milan to see Melvin there slide out of turn 4. Now Milan is putting pressure on Melvin in first and second place. He can now sit in the DRS range and play the game, because he knows that DRS will be very important in this race too. He can save to the battery, manage his tyres in P2, and just follow Melvin in first place there. Now he's got him in his sights and under pressure and has that DRS. He can try and play the long-term game and stick with him until the very end of the Grand Prix to decide to see who will win this race. Remember the battle back in Mexico, those two had? It was Melvin versus Milan. Melvin made an optimistic move down the inside in towards turn 13, 14 in the stadium section, and he got himself a post-race penalty. But these two will definitely get their elbows out, because this is for a championship indeed. Milan is 1 point behind Melvin in the championship as we head down towards turn 1. I think Milan's going to play smart and not going to go for it straight away. He's going to be very clever in this second part of the race. Just sit there in P2, follow Melvin, and wait to see what happens in the later part of the Grand Prix. And also it depends as well as Napo retires in the pit lane. It goes from bad to worse. Napo hasn't really had a highlight this season, although he's made it into Q3. Well, I say Q3. He's made it into the top 10 sometimes in qualifying, but he's just had a massive struggle, has Napo this season. And he was here last season too, and it was the same story. So I really hope that Napo does find something to try and get himself back up there. He did finish P10. That's his only points this season at the Spanish Grand Prix. He's only picked up 1 point as well, for good measure, has Napo, but he just seems to be struggling. He does continue. He does turn up every single weekend, every week, which is very good for him. Shows his commitment and never giving up, but it's just a shame that he just can't seem to find anything to have a little bit of a break and see what he's doing wrong, etc. But Milan Diossi has got the battery up to 100% now, because he was lacking it all the way through in that in the part where he couldn't get in DRS range of Melvin. But now he's in the DRS range, he's able to save up sufficient battery and stay behind Melvin in first place. But passing in P3 though, keeps getting closer, but just keeps dipping out of DRS range. So he's got some decent pace there in the Haas. He's not fully dropped away just yet. The gap was about 2 seconds a couple of laps ago. He could be a threat still in P3, but he does have a 10-second time penalty. The last person Milan needs in this battle is Ryan in P4. He desperately hopes that Ryan does not get himself in this battle, because that would be a McLaren sandwich, and both McLarens could play games against Milan Diossi. Remember Ryan's robust defence back in Silverstone, and he was defended for his absolute life. It's why he didn't let Provitos go. I think Ryan stayed ahead the whole time. Don't know how he did it, but it was a great defence indeed from the McLaren driver, who was on the back foot pretty much the whole race, when Milan Diossi picked himself up a 10-second penalty. But lap 18, we're halfway there. This race has absolutely flown by. Nothing's really happened just yet. We're at the part where it's going to be very quiet. Nothing much going on other than these guys following the DRS range. We could see some potential pit stops later on in this race too. So depending if these guys can make their halves go towards the end. Another tyre weight is quite high, but I'm not quite sure if we might see some people dive into the pit lane for a new hard or medium compound tyre, depending on what they want to go for as well. But we'll see how good their time management is. And Kingsman gets a 10-second time penalty for speed in the pit lane. We know how quick that pit lane is, because you arrive there at high speed, then slam on the brakes immediately. And unfortunately, he does have a 10-second time penalty, does the Williams driver. And D'Amico is up into P6 now, and he gets ahead of KDRDN, who did get himself on the podium in Saudi Arabia. But I think these two made contact in Saudi, which gave KDRDN a 5-second time penalty, which pushed him all the way down into P7 or P8, which was a shame, because he's a quick driver, and he finally had a chance to get himself on the podium, but unfortunately, he just lost it towards the end of the race, and got himself a penalty. Finished P3, I think it was. But look at Passy, he's so close. He's 1.2 seconds behind Milan Diossi as well. So it might not be over. We could see the battle reform. Maybe Melvin could be slowing Milan down to give Passy and Ryan the DRS to put him under threat as well. I'm not quite sure. But however, the Haas's pace hasn't really dissipated so far. It's still there and showing some good signs as well. Maybe Milan being stuck in Dirtier is what's cost him in those slow speed corners, which is allowing Passy to get closer, because the Dirtier is very effective and punishing on this game as well. So you definitely feel the effects with the understeer, the head tension, the loss of power as well. So that's why Passy could be getting brought back closer towards the DRS range on Milan Diossi and reconnect the train. Provotox is still there in P5. Then there's D'Amico in the background. And I dare say D'Amico might have to take defeat on this one in Brazil, as he's not able to get anywhere closer towards the guys at the front. What have you seen?
It was C8 Lou going for the move on KDRDN in towards turn 4. There was contact as the Sauber turned in, and the Ferrari hit just the back there of the kick Sauber on the exit. And then when he tried to correct it, he overcorrected it and slid back to the outside of the track, off the track, and now finds himself rejoining and behind the Aston Martin of Adameco, losing a lot of time in the process as well. So really a fortunate moment there for C8 Lou, was looking to get past the Sauber. That's a big moment for Adameco as well, coming out of turn 10. And it's really the train former behind him now, as the gap's 3 seconds towards KDRDN. He's already dropped out of the DRS range towards the mic, which just shows the Alpine, the pace of the Alpine in this race, and shows the potential he had earlier on. As we know, he's really getting close now towards the back of Melvin, while Spassi is still closing the gap as well, like you said, and he's bringing Ryan and Provotox with him for good measure, which is not great news for Milan Diossi. Of course, with Ryan in the McLaren, being teammate of Melvin. It seems like Melvin hasn't got isn't trying to push at all so far in this stint, and might be trying to bring his teammate towards him to work together and beat Milan Diossi. As Provotox has just fallen outside as well. C8 Lona trying to go up the inside of Adameco, has done so successfully, but on the exit comes the Aston Martin once again. They will go wheel to wheel towards turn 6. You really don't want to go side by side through here. The Aston Martin has to back out, unfortunately for him, and will stay at the back of the Ferrari. Really struggling with the rear end, it seems like, is the Aston Martin. In the meantime, the Grand Data and the Alpine has gone for a second pit stop with 15 laps to go. Definitely committing then to a 2-stop, coming out on a brand new set of hards, and will try to gain a few positions with the undercut. In the meantime, Bassi in the Haas has finally caught up to the back of our 2 race leaders and does have the DRS as well. So this brings the whole top 4 together. Provotox has just fallen outside at the wrong time. He ran out of battery as well, so he's unable to close that gap anymore towards them. D'Amico is going to come into the pit lane in the Alpine. So one of our championship protagonists going for the 2-stop, and I have a feeling that many of these drivers will try to do that. And D'Amico going in nice and early to go for the undercut to gain as much time as possible on his rivals Melvin and Milan Diossi, and he will come out in clean air down in P11, so he can try and push on and really start to bring that gap down towards our 2 race leaders. Provotox now 1.4 seconds behind, but it's become a 4-way fight at front. Although Passi, of course, with that 10-second time penalty, which he will have to serve at his next pit stop. That is when he's going to drop out of this train, unfortunately for him. While his teammate gets past the Red Bull of Paco, who must have made a mistake, I think, in the Red Bull. But his teammate Mighty Wombat, he was very clever to do so, to remove his 10-second time penalty under the same safety car. So he will not lose that much time, as he's down in B9. Yeah, but he did sacrifice track position though. So let's see then if Melvin or Milan Diossi will stay out for any more laps. Yes, they will. Is Milan Diossi going to try and go for racing for the first time in this race? He's going to pull to the inside. There he goes. Milan Diossi will take the lead of the Brazilian Grand Prix as Provotox picks up a 10-second time penalty as well now for speeding in the pit lane. Not the first one to do so, might not be the last either. But Milan Diossi, for the first time in this race, we've got a new race leader. And it's one of our championship protagonists ahead now of Melvin. Then it's Passi in P3, but it's Ryan into the pit lane as well in the McLaren. Mighty Wombat, KDRDN and Paco, and let's see where D'Amico will be once all of the drivers come out of the pit lane. Will he be ahead of Ryan or will he be behind? That is the question. Of course, Ryan, being the teammate of Melvin, would try to hold off D'Amico in the Alpine, but he's going to come out ahead of the McLaren. There he is. D'Amico in P7 now, right behind Provotox. And once Milan Diossi, Melvin and Passi all make their pit stop, D'Amico should be in the fight at the front of the field again. So he will be back in the fight for the race win. Unfortunately for him though, he's still got that 3-second time penalty, which is definitely going to hurt him towards the very end, especially if Milan Diossi and Melvin keep it clean throughout the rest of this race. But he should be in the fight for the win once our race leaders make their pit stop. Let's see if they're going to continue on. Yes, they will. Melvin, will he try to retake the lead, or will he stay behind going in towards turn 1? He will stay behind as we go on to lap 24. There's still 12, 13 laps remaining in this race. Pasi is staying out as well in the Haas now that he's caught up to the back of these two, as Alamico becomes another driver to pick up a 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. But surprising to see that Milan DLC and Melvin are still staying out. And that begs the question, will they try to go for the one-stop? It's very optimistic to do so, as now Ryan has picked up a penalty and he's retired from the race. I'm not sure what happened then for the McLaren, but that is bad news for Melvin, because he would be right there to fight it out with the likes of Damaiko and Milan DLC. But now he is out of the race and Melvin is left alone in his McLaren.
Yeah, his rear gunner has now disappeared from the race. Ryan pitted, but he's still on the 15-lap hardcore power tyres, which is very, very weird indeed. So I'm not quite sure what the problem was there. I swear he pitted, came out of the pits again, and it says on the hardcore power tyre. Oh, Melvin's had a massive slide as I go on the pause menu there as well. I just saw it out of Judge Sal, but surely these guys are not going to make it to the end on these hardcore power tyres. There's 12 laps left to go. 12 plus 16, 17 is about 20, 28, 28, 29 laps. That is a long way on the hardcore power tyres, and plus, you would have thought these guys would have pitted by now if they're going to do the two-stop strategy, because they're going to lose a lot of time. But looks like Pasi's got some decent pace there, still in the Haas to keep up with the guys in front as well. I think these guys could suffer towards the end. It's all about who can manage the tyres towards the very end if these guys don't decide to pit again. KDRDN is in P6 on a new set of hardcore power tyres. Could be looking very interesting for a podium too. Depends how it all goes. But I really hope for Milan and Melvin's sake they don't get a puncher, because if they do, then the championship could swing back towards Damaiko's way. I'm not quite sure the lifespan on those tyres, how far they go. Damaiko goes up into P4 now. He knows that Povatox has a 10-second time penalty in this race for speeding in the pit lane. I think he did. Yes, he did. But so does Pasi as well. I forgot about that penalty. Pasi does have a 10-second penalty, and the reason why he's not pitted again, because he doesn't want to serve in the pit lane and lose a lot of time. So I did forget about his penalty. 4 or 5 drivers in this race have picked themselves up a 10-second penalty for speed in the pit lane, and that has really cost him dearly as well in this race. There was about 11 laps left to go in the Grand Prix, and we've got a battle for 2 championship contenders. Melvin is in the pit lane, so let's see then. It should be the mini cup power tie, surely, and surely gets the undercut on Milan in first place. I think Melvin, if Milan pits, Melvin will definitely undercut him, considering the tyre difference, the age difference, and the tyre compound. Melvin is on the no set mini compound tyres. Damaiko and Povatox will probably take the lead. Maybe, maybe not. Let's see as we head down out of the pit lane towards turn 2. Damaiko gets ahead. Povatox gets ahead. Melvin rejoins in P5 in the race. Can Milan Diossi get towards the end of the Grand Prix? That's going to be impossible for sure. That's 28 laps on the set of hardcore power tyres. That is very optimistic indeed. But now Melvin needs to make his way past Povatox and Damaiko if he can. If Milan doesn't pit this lap, it tells me he's going to go to the end of the Grand Prix, but given the body language of those tyres, not looking great so far, plus there is about 10 laps left to go in this race then. So at the end of this lap, let's see if Milan does pit, and if he doesn't, it tells me he's staying out towards the end of the race, which is very optimistic as well on his hardcore power tyres. Here we go. Is he pitting? The answer is no. Melvin gets past the Ferrari driver of Povatox, so Milan Diossi is completely taking a different approach in this race by staying out. He knows Pasi is not a threat, because Pasi does have that 10-second penalty to his name. So Melvin has got to overtake and catch Milan Diossi for this race. The gap is 18 seconds, and here comes Povatox. Melvin's defending for his life. He pushed the Ferrari against the wall. As we head down towards turn 1, it's a double overtake there. Well, Melvin gets past Damaiko, but they go side by side at turn 1 and turn 2. Damaiko stays ahead for the time being. Remember, Damaiko does have a 3-second time penalty in this race. They're battling so hard over third place. This is our championship protagonist going tooth and nail as we head down towards turn 4. He's on the brakes around the outside. He makes the move stick. What a great move indeed. That was beautiful on the brakes there to go around the outside, maintain P3 and have track competition and stay on the track as well. That was very, very important for Melvin to get past those two. Now he can focus on Milan Diossi in P1. That's his main target, to try and get Milan. If Milan goes towards the end of this race on those hardcore power tyres, what a drive from Milan Diossi. Bearing in mind though, I have seen a scenario before. It was F1 2024. I saw somebody take a hardcore power tyre 33 laps in a race, and he had good pace. He was struggling towards the end, and the guys behind were catching about 3-4 seconds a lap, and he still won. He pitted behind the safety car, took the hardcore power tyres a long way, 33 laps, and he still won the Grand Prix with no signs of a puncture. So it's possible. But for Milan's sake, I really hope he doesn't get a puncher in this race, because that is going to blow the championship wide open for him and give it towards Melvin. Because Melvin, surely, if Milan gets a puncher, will definitely win this race, given that Maiko has a 3-second penalty. So it's going to be Milan or Melvin who wins this race.
Yeah, that's just such a big risk there to take from Milan DLC. It's going to be all or nothing for him, because the chance can be quite high that he picks up a puncture, and then he will be well outside any good position, and probably maybe outside the points as well. So I don't really understand the thinking behind this idea, but it's really go big or go home, which is, well, not normally a risk you would take when you're in a championship fight. But if he wins, it would be incredible, of course. But there's still 8 laps to go. Melvin is catching at a rapid rate, and Milan DLC's tires will get worse and worse, and he will have to do some incredible tire saving towards the very end. But it's a brave decision, of course. I hope for him that it works, but it's gonna be so difficult for him to make those tires work, as the tire is so incredibly high. As Melvin there with the fast lap race, 109.5, probably a couple of seconds quicker a lap than those two ahead. Bassi is still continuing on as well in the Haas Stars. Also not looking very great, but like you said, the reason why he is doing it is probably because he's got that 10-second time penalty and wouldn't want to wait and sit in the pit lane for 10 seconds and lose a bunch of positions, bunch of time, and be all the way outside the top 10 maybe. So I can see why he is trying to go to the end, but Milan DLC, when in such a vulnerable position in this championship fight, really big risk for him to take. In the meantime, C8 Lou has found a way past Kingsman. Of course, Kingsman has pitted a long time ago, when he went to the mediums under the safety car conditions. 10 laps ago he made the switch to the hard, still has to do 7 more, but that should be doable on the hard compound tires. He slides his way into the braking zone of turn 8 with the Aston Martin Panameco Mighty Wombat going side by side on the exit, but the Haas just doesn't have the grip to hold it all the way around the outside. There's just a little fight here going on at the back end of the top 10, but the fight now continues on at the front. The gap's now 11 seconds. I think Melvin has just been over 2 seconds quicker every single lap, and with 7 laps to go, he should be able to catch these guys. And the Maiko is coming with him as well, but he has dropped outside the DRS range just now, but he's still got the good pace. He's probably still 2 seconds a lap quicker than Milan DLC as well. But with that 3-second time penalty, it might be very close at the very end. But at this rate, I think Melvin should be able to catch the RB and the Haas at the front, especially when their tires will eventually fall off the cliff entirely, and will start to lose a whole bunch of time in their fight, as there's a nice scrap still going on between Alameco Kingsman and Mighty Wombat here for P9. Still enjoying it. Of course, the gap's now 1.7. Alameco on the mediums as well, pitting 6 laps ago. He's really struggling in this race with the back end. Has had multiple moments so far, but is still inside the points and doing a decent job. The gap now 10 seconds, 9.9. So I think that's another 1.5 seconds gained for Melvin on this previous lap. But there is 6 laps to go. This race is coming to an end, and Milan DLC is still holding on these stars. But for how much longer will he be able to make it to the end without getting himself a point? That would be such an incredible feat when being in such a position in the championship fight. And if he does win today, then he would have the best cards going towards next week in the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. But just look at the state of those stars. It's not looking great at all, with the graining on the front and the rears. And he must be really feeling the effects of the tire wear as well. Every slip, every slide is going to make the tire wear even worse as well. So he just has to keep it clean in this stage to not take any more tire wear than he's already having. So he's in a very vulnerable position right now, and Melvin is still closing the gap as that yellow flags up ahead. I think it was with Profitox might have had a moment in the Ferrari. He's dropped outside DRS range towards the Maiko. The gap's 5 seconds in fact, so he might have made a mistake then in pursuit of the Alpine. But the gap's now 8.6 seconds. Melvin is close. It's not 2 seconds a lap anymore, but he's still at least 1.5, I think. And with 5 laps to go, might be very tight, but he just has to hope that the tires of Milan DLC and Passi just fall off the cliff entirely, and he would gain a lot more time. But We're going on to lap 32 of 36. 5 laps remaining here at the Brazilian Grand Prix. Will it be enough for Milan DLC, or will Melvin catch them in time? It's going to be very tight towards the very end of the race.
I am so nervous for Milan DLC because I can see a puncher just approaching the surface very soon. Look at the state of those tyres, very aggressive indeed, very worn out and driving on the absolute limit. But he's not really making mistakes despite the tyres aging so ever so more every single lap. He's not really making any obvious mistakes. No signs of oversteer, no signs of locking up all the time, no signs of losing the car. He's keeping the car nice and controlled and keeping the car at a good pace to try and keep Melvin at bay for the time being. But the gap's going down ever so slightly between Melvin and Milan, catching him at a rate of knots, but it's not the same 2 seconds a lap anymore. So Melvin is not really catching as he should be on those big compound tyres. But if Milan DLC wins the Brazilian Grand Prix, then that would be extraordinary for the Racing Bull driver to manage these tyres, keep a good pace going, and win this race through to the old tyres. It's going to be such a good drive there for Milan in first place. Melvin, though, not quite sure why he's not really gaining as I thought I would be, because those big compound tyres should be should be in good shape still by now in PT. There he is coming through the centre resistance through turn 1 and turn 2 and turn 3. He should be pushing like a bullet here in this race at a rate of knots, because new tyres versus old tyres and a championship on the line, you would have thought he would absolutely go for it. Do you know the benefit for Milan DLC is the guy behind him is not really pushing him, he's not really attacking him, and that's the benefit for Milan DLC, because the last thing that he needs is Passi to be fighting him. I think Passi knows that Milan DLC is the championship fight, plus he's got a 10-second time limit. What's the point of trying to fight him? I know Melvin would dearly love Passi to try and fight Milan DLC to disrupt his progress and try and gain as much as he can whilst D2 is copping away. But I think Passi, knowing that Milan's the championship fight, knowing that he's got a 10-second penalty, fair enough, don't go for the fight, because there's just no point to ruin his race for no reason. But if Passi didn't have a 10-second penalty, well, if he didn't, I'm pretty sure he would have pitted along with the rest of the guys, because he probably made that choice. But because he's got a 10-second penalty, he doesn't want to pit. Where is Passi going to fit into all this? Where is he going to... I think he might finish in P4 towards the end of the race, because Passi's pace has been so good so far, but unfortunately he does have that 10-second penalty. Do you know what? The chase is over. I don't think Melvin is going to catch Milan DLC. There is 3 laps left to go in this race, and there's a 6.3 second gap between himself and Milan DLC. So I think that is it for Melvin. He doesn't have any more chances to overtake him. He needs about 3 seconds a lap, and I don't think that Melvin's going to do that unless Milan DLC might get a punch in this race. So that's very, very good time management, good pace, good time management, a very aggressive strategy in this race. High risk, high reward there for Milan DLC, especially what happened in Saudi Arabia too, because he lost a bunch of points in Saudi when he crashed in turn 4, and he was the championship leader before that too. But here in Brazil, it could have gone from bad to worse if he picked up a puncher here in Brazil as well. It means a double blunder back in Saudi and in Brazil. There is still 2 laps left to go in this race, and we could see Milan still get a puncher. But Melvin's taken 1 second out on Milan on this lap as well. He needs more than that to try and get him. But I think Milan DLC should be safe, because his pace is good so far. He's not really dropping a lot of pace like I thought he would be. But it all depends, though. Will he pick up that puncher or not?
Reminds me of last season at Jeddah, where we had Stefano in a similar position in the lead of the race, except that at that time he didn't know that it would matter that much for the championship. Of course, at the end it might have. But now we're at the very end of the season, and at Milan DLC, it definitely would matter if he gets a puncture or not in this race. But Stefano did so last season at Jeddah, and he lost the win because of it on the final lap. And Milan DLC on the penultimate lap of this race. So tires still not looking very great at all, and they will not be for the remainder of the race. Melvin, the gap is now 3.7 seconds. He's still gaining on these guys, but like you said, I don't think it's going to be enough for him. And the only thing that he can hope for is that Milan DLC gets that puncture. But there's only a few kilometers racing remaining in this race, and Milan DLC has done an exceptional job so far in this race to nurse those tires all the way towards the end. And it's only 1 lap to go, just 1 single lap for this very good result for him in the championship. But those tires must be high in the 80s, in the 90s even, percentage-wise, and he is going to be struggling so much to keep those tires alive. We go to the final lap of the race, lap 36 of 36. It all comes down to this, as Melvin now 3 seconds behind. For sure he will get Passi, but on track I don't think he's going to be able to catch Milan DLC. But will he keep his tires alive or will he get a puncture on the very, very last lap of this race?
This is a massive moment for Milan Diossi as he comes through the final lap, because after the heartbreak of retiring last time out in Saudi Arabia, this has been a response worthy of a championship contender. Wow, look at Melvin, he's 2.7 seconds behind, but I don't think he'll cash. Those tyres have been on those cars for 29 laps, well beyond their comfort zone, yet Milan has managed them perfectly. No panic, no overdriving, just calm, precise, controlled. When it matters the most, he's absorbed the pressure really, really well, kept the gap stable, and trusted his pace despite everything being stacked against him in the closing stages. This drive is all about resilience, bouncing back from zero-score race, taking the risk on strategy and gamble, and executing for perfect with the margins on razor thin. As we head towards the line, Milan isn't just winning the race here, he's reclaiming his momentum in the championship standings. Milan Diossi wins the Brazilian Grand Prix after an aggressive strategy on those hard powered tyres. The championship has swung back towards his favour, and he's stronger and more composed than ever, and sending a clear message to his rivals that he's very much back in the championship hunt. What a drive! And D'Amico is on the podium, back in P3. Can you believe it? After all his troubles at the first lap of the race, literally. Melvin's in P2, the gap is 1.9 seconds, but Milan Diossi, what a drive to manage those hardcore power tyres, not get a puncture and not lose so much pace. Melvin, on the other hand, will be frustrated, but the gap was 2 seconds. What a race for Milan Diossi, and I think he needs to give credit to Passy, because if Passy was going to fight him in that stint, obviously Melvin would get in, but I'm very sure that he's grateful that Passy did not fight him in the last 17 laps of the race.
Yeah, that certainly helped, but absolutely incredible race there from Milan Diossi. Getting those stars towards the end, 29 laps on those hards. Absolute tire whisperer, you could call him. And Bassi, of course, as well, doing the exact same thing. Unfortunately, though, that 10-second time penalty does limit him to P4, but still a great result for him, regardless. But once again, the top three in the championship, finishing in first, second, and third. But it's Milan Diossi on top, and he is going to take the lead of the championship back after losing it at Jeddah due to his own fault. But now he is going to be back on top in the championship, and he is going to have the best cards going in towards the final race. D'Amico with a strong comeback drive regardless, finishing on the podium after being last at the beginning of this race. Got some help from the safety car, fought back through the field, and only finished 6 seconds behind our race leader. But wow, what an incredible result there from Milan Diossi, 5th on the grid, and taking it all the way towards the end on those very, very worn out tires. Truly a championship worthy drive there from the RB.
Exactly. D'Amico will lose the championship. He might be 2 or 3 points behind Melvin, but this championship will go down to the wire in Abu Dhabi, the final race of the season. The top three separated by 6 or 7 points in the championship. This is going to be a showdown race in Abu Dhabi. It's all or nothing for these three. And like I said at the beginning of this stream and the last couple of races, there is no room for error at all in terms of mistakes. Neither of the three can make any sort of small mistake like D'Amico did. That was a big mistake, but recovered to finish in P3. Every single driver, every driver in the top three of the championship, Milan, Melvin, and D'Amico, the top three of the championship, all go for glory in Abu Dhabi to see and determine who will win the championship for the final race of the season in Abu Dhabi. And I cannot wait to see what happens as well. It's going to be absolutely mega to see. I really hope all three of them fight it out, because D'Amico was never in the race, really, was he? But Melvin and Milan was, and Milan went for a completely abrupt strategy in the race, a very, very aggressive strategy, which I thought wouldn't pay dividends, but his time management has been absolutely key and meticulous for the race. And what a shame for Melvin as well not to pick up that win. But I honestly thought Melvin would catch Milan to the end of the race. But Melvin's time management was so supreme. He managed to win him the race as well. And I think he'd be giving praises towards the Haas as well, because the Haas did not fight him at all. He stayed behind in P2, preserved P2. He knew that if he fought Milan as well, he'd lose a lot of time. He had a 10-second penalty, so there's no point fighting Milan, because he would have lost even more places, given a 10-second penalty and older tyres too. So very smart racing from him in P2 Passy at the time. But Milan Diossi, wow, what a race. And I bet he's very, very happy that from zero to hero, zero to hero, back in Saudi to winning in Brazil. What a comeback drive, what a story. The pressure did not get to him whatsoever, and it ended on a high here in Brazil. What's going to happen in Abu Dhabi? Find out next week on Monday at 8 o'clock for F3. But Milan Langer, thank you very much for commentating me. One more between us next week on Monday.
looking forward to it. It's going to be an awesome race, and I thoroughly enjoyed it as always. So thank you as well.